Right, maybe I'll turn the camera around this way today rather than the direction that I'm going in. I'll pretend I'm Moses. He does this business, doesn't he, holding the camera at himself while talking and walking around. So I'm doing a bit of a Moses. So let my videos flow. Anyhow, no, not that Moses. Basically, this one's for Matt Johnson. That's his name. Yep, Matt Johnson, who just Facebook messaged me asking for a specific video, namely, what do you do if somebody won't speak to you in German, or in whatever other language you've taken the trouble to learn, and then you've gone in order to perfect it to the country where you believe, at least in theory, it is spoken. Well, this is a problem in a number of places. There seems to be a culture, certainly in Asia as far as I can work out, for, let's say, Japanese people to simply not believe that foreigners can speak their language, and therefore, even if they hear perfectly good Japanese, they look back nonplussed and just laugh. That at least is something that you can get round in Germany by becoming very good at German, and at least if you're a European origin looking person, you won't seem out of place, I suppose, in Germany in most cases, because, well, I mean, the problem of looking automatically as though you've got no right to speak Japanese isn't going to be an issue for most other Europeans or Americans of a European origin. When they go to Germany, they're not going to look as though they couldn't possibly be Germans. Most of us look in the European, those of us who are white and from the European area, look not that distinct from one another to be taken as something other than a German. So in Germany, so when you become good enough at German and they can't tell that you've got some kind of a English language accent, then of course you're going to start the conversations in German, and then the question isn't even going to arise, where else do you come from? As long as you don't speak fantastic German and the person you're talking to thinks that they speak your language, obviously you can pretend, if you don't have a specifically English or American accent, you can pretend that you don't speak English and that you only speak a language which they don't understand. So, you know, you can, if you speak some other rare languages, like you answer in Welsh or something, dydw I ddim yn siarad Saes neg, yeah. So I don't speak English. There aren't that many Welsh people actually who don't speak English, but the Germans may not know that. Basically, one second, I'll turn this around because I'm going to actually come to the bank machine. I'll carry on talking, but I've got to get some cash out of the cash machine, and I don't necessarily want to have this film me doing it because you'll all know my PIN number, which is maybe not for the best. Most of you, I'm sure I could trust with it, but the bank wouldn't like it, so I shan't be doing that for you. The other thing is, I'll take some money from this card just so that bear with me. Quickly, otherwise it grabs it back. Bear with me. Dziękujemy I zapraszamy ponownie. If you did see or hear anything there that breaches my security, then please don't use it. Anyhow, yeah. Get the camera back on me. There's not that much battery on this, so I'll have to be quick about what I want to say. I wrote back and gave Matt a few ideas anyway as to how to deal with it. One of them, of course, is to speak to the other person in heavily accented. Apart from if the person knows that you're from England or an English-speaking country and they want to practice their English, or that you come from a country whose language they want to practice, and they know that, they've already twigged that. Maybe they know your name and they can see it's a name from an English-speaking country. You can always try and speak to them in very heavily accented English. The conversations go something like this. First of all, you might say in German, ja, haben Sie ein Zimmer frei, bitte? And the person comes back and says, what do you want, a double room or a single room? Actually, that wasn't a German accent, but do you want a single room or a double room? It's particularly bad actually in this hospitality industry because they don't necessarily know anything, but they learn these phrases in all different languages, and then when they get the chance to troll them out, they love to do it because it justifies their existence. So the fact that you may have gone halfway around the world to practice your language, and that's just a little chance you get to do it, whereas they're doing it the whole time in the hospitality industry, doesn't seem to appeal to them. Well, you can say it's like this: you know what? I think I'll go for them big uns. I'm sorry. I didn't understand you. Yeah, what you said, you said you want to have a dual room or a single room. I'll go with a dual ones. So if you make it so that it's English but barely comprehensible, you'll find that they will be very grateful when you lapse back into German again. Oh, entschuldigen Sie, ich dachte Sie konnten Englisch. Okay, dann machen wir es weiter, besser auf Deutsch. And then everything goes swimmingly from then on. They won't try English again on you in a hurry. Another one that you can do, if they've already got you onto English and it's too late to go for that one, is to start timing it, if it's one of those longer ones. Or if it's somebody that you work with who knows you very well and is getting used to speaking to you already in English, you can start to time it and say, okay, that was half an hour of English, now let's change back to Czech, or let's change back to Polish or German or whatever it is that you wanted to speak in the first place. And then they'll feel as though, oh, he thinks he's done me a favour by speaking English to me, and now he expects the favour back by getting me to correct his Czech or German or whatever it is that guy speaks. And then, maybe it's best for him to not actually get into the favour for a favour scenario, but just simply to lapse into his own language and make it easier and less complicated for the future. Or, alternatively, you might say, oh, this is fine, yeah, that's fair. Half an hour this way, half an hour that way. And even though that's not exactly fair on you when you've done the travel, it's still better than nothing. So that's also a defence. But the best, another way of doing it, if you're in this crowd situation, the way of getting your way here is to, if you're in a group of people, any of whom could be giving information, you speak to one of them in German and they answer you back in English. You say, ach, Sie haben kein Deutsch, and then go on to the next person and ask them in German as well, as though you've misunderstood that person as not knowing any German, and they probably are, of course, German. That will also be embarrassing for them in front of the other people present. Therefore, that's another technique that you can do. However, one of the best techniques of all is actually a technique which Harold Goodman mentions at the end of the Chinese course. I think it's Harold Goodman. It's definitely the end of one of them, the Michel Thomas courses that aren't by Michel Thomas. Definitely one of those, where they say, what do you do when they try and talk to you in a language that you don't want them to talk to you in? Well, they're proving to you that basically you can't force them to speak their language. Well, that's great. You also have sovereign control of your own speech organs. You can carry on speaking their language. So, and there's nothing wrong with you having a conversation. Yeah, I think this was Harold Goodman that says it, because he says you are communicating. When this happens, you're still communicating. The fact that they want to answer you in English, in his case he's talking about a Chinese person, the fact that they want to talk to you back in English, well, they can't do that without acknowledging the fact that they've understood you. So therefore you know that you've communicated, which is the important thing. You may not have your mistakes answered. Of course you can do a variation on this, and that is when you respond to in German to the German that's just told you something English, if they've asked a question, is to answer a completely different question, and that then does the reverse thing, where you're making the German believe that his English wasn't comprehensible to you. That's why you're answering a different question. That's just a technique, though. You have to be considering, yes, I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it, and simply carry it through with deliberation as an act to do it. Yes, but it will probably make it so that the person gives up his end of the game, and lapses into the language you want to speak, his presumably mother tongue that he somehow doesn't want to speak, because it becomes like a game amongst all people that like to learn languages. It becomes almost like a power play. Okay, I'm a native of this language that you want to speak, and I've learned your language, so let's see who's able to out-linguify the other. And it's almost become a point of pride for the person that's speaking the second language, that the conversation then goes on in that person's second language, and you, who've gone there to learn your target language, don't get to do it. For some people, it almost becomes like a kind of sport or a tussle, a point of pride to be able to do that. Well, that, all told, is okay. It's an interesting game, isn't it? But if you think of it as a game, then you can use, which it probably is to some of the people that are doing it, maybe not all, maybe they don't even realise they're doing it, then these psychological things like carrying on so that they speak to you in English, you speak to them in German, and it carries on like that until the first one blinks, as it were. And just if you know in advance, okay, now I'm going to play that game and I'm ready for it, then you probably will win it. Whereas if that person just started doing it on an ad hoc basis, thinking that they were going to get a chance to speak English, but weren't ready with any real battle strategies, then they probably will lose it. The other thing is that if you consider the Sun Tzu's Art of War, quite apart from having battle strategy and having moral high ground, which you have because you travel to that country and put money in order to do it, whereas they didn't, so that gives you moral high ground, the chi, as it were, the first of the five, but also things like climate and terrain, which are the second and the third out of Sun Tzu's 5 aspects. Of course, what's going on around, the topics of conversation are going to contain words which are specifically German, if you're in Germany, or specifically Polish if you're in Poland, or specifically Czech if you're in the Czech Republic. And so that means that you're going to very quickly find that the guy can't actually continue without lapsing into the target language, your target language. Well, once that happens, you can say, you like make a kind of signal that you see you need to speak German. It's not going very well in English, is it? You need to lapse into German anyway, let's just continue in German. So there you are, that's the requested video from Matt Johnson. Hopefully that was helpful to him and also to some other people. Thank you, Matt, for the idea. I'm sure you're not the only person helped by that, assuming you were helped, of course. So, thanks.